What's up, boys and girls? Welcome back to another StarCraft 2 guide. Today we're going to be having a look at the Protoss versus Protoss matchup. I did one on PvP a couple of weeks ago, and we'll be going on that basis. So basically, in that video I showed how to deal with proxies. So if you're not sure how to deal with proxies with this opener, go watch that first. I'll put a little link up here somewhere that you can click right now. And if your opponent is not playing a proxy, we're going to be doing what Showtime did against me today in one of the games. So I absolutely love this concept where someone beats me and I immediately make a guide on it. I think it's very useful for everyone involved, for myself as well. I learn the build order better. We all get to see me lose, which is always a pleasure. And in general, you know, we get to see a good build order, as Showtime's probably one of the best PvPers in all of Europe. Actually, probably the best PvP in the foreign scene, honestly. He was rocking a solid 71% win rate on ladder I saw earlier today, so let's go into it. So the way he starts is just by building obviously a single gateway into two gases, and after his second gas, he scouts downstairs for any kind of cannon rushes, any proxy gates, and then once he gets enough minerals for the second gate, he sends it back up to build that second gate. Right? Shot? Never mind. He doesn't do that. That's what I do. What he does instead, he sends his probe across the map and another probe builds his gateway. I think that's worse than what I do, so I'm not gonna defend that. Let's see how he does his gas management. Puts one guy in each gas the moment the gases finish. And then he rallies, what is this? His 20th probe to build a cyber core, get into gas. And after he builds a cyber core, he puts another 2 workers into one of the gases and then rallies another worker into the next gas. So after the cybercore pulls 2 workers into gas, the guy that built the cybercore goes into gas, and then the next rallied worker goes into gas as well. So that leaves us with 14 probes on minerals and a and just full saturation on the gas. Second pylon goes down at 22 supply once you have the money for it. And we continue probe production all the way through. Now, with your probe, you want to be scouting whether there's a second pylon in your opponent's base. If there's not, once again, follow my other guide on how to deal with proxies with this build opener. If you see a second pylon in your opponent's main base, continue with this plan. So, second pylon, we continue probe production. We have 2 chrono boosts so far on our Nexus. And the moment our cybercore finishes, we start a Sentry, we start a Stalker, and we start our warp gate research. Our 24th probe that finishes gets rallied into our natural, and we'll be building a pylon on the low ground. Now this is our 3rd pylon that will be there. We continue worker production all the way throughout, and then we stop, I believe temporarily, once we're at 25 workers. Now, what we want to do right now is, first of all, we want to see what our opponent builds. So usually you stick around with your probe, either until it dies or maybe you can barely escape. But you want to see if it's Stalker first or Stalker Sentry first. And in this case he can't see because I delayed my Sentry a bit. On the other hand, you kind of want to hide that you're getting a Sentry, so ideally you don't show it. And the moment your opponent probe gets killed or moves out of your base and your units are about to pop, you build a Stargate. So the Stargate goes down at 29 out of 39 supply. We have a Sentry and a Stalker. No other units in production yet. And we build our Stargate. From that point on, we build a second Stalker. We get a Nexus and we get a battery. And after we get our Nexus, we continue probe production. So we get one more Stalker. The moment we hit 50 gas, ideally. We get a Nexus, and we get a battery. And like I said, after the Nexus, we continue our worker production. So Nexus start at 31 supply, we build an extra worker, and we build a battery as soon as we can. Now, from here on out, we can start sending our hallucination. Usually if you build your Sentry, the moment your cybercore finishes, around the 3-minute mark, you can send your hallucination. Sometimes it's 301, sometimes it's 302. So you'll send in your hallucination, and what you want to be looking for is, first of all, you want to be seeing if there's a Nexus. So you always fly to the natural first, then you'll be going into the main base to check the tech. Make sure to always try and dodge his units, especially if there's 3 Stalkers or more Stalkers, they will be able to kill your hallucination before it gets in. And it's absolutely vital that you get information with this hallucination. All right. So we get our battery after we build our probe. Once our Stargate finishes, we get an Oracle from our Stargate. And we chrono boost it immediately. So we only still have 2 chrono boosts on the Nexus in total. And from now on, we'll just be chrono boosting our Oracles temporarily. Now, let's have a look on the other side of the map with our hallucination. Look at the path he takes, goes into the natural. We'll be flying into the main base. What does he see? He sees a robotics facility. He's going to be pretty happy with this. He's like, all right, that's completely fine. Robotics facility means that there's no threat coming up soon, most likely. It could be some kind of prison play, but that's all a little bit later. It's not 3 gate or 4 gate. In the case of 3 or 4 gate, or any kind of aggression from your opponent, you add an extra battery, perhaps use a chrono boost on your warp gate, and then start warping in extra units from your gateways. That would be pretty much the goal. But especially the extra battery is very helpful, obviously. If you see a Stargate from your opponent, most of the time I would suggest building either a single Oracle or going straight into Phoenix, or going a single Oracle into Twilight Council and then playing Blink afterwards. But in this case, as Robo or Forge or Twilight are, in my opinion, the most common follow-ups for standard play in PvP right now, 2 Oracles will be the way forward. So after we build our Oracle, we chrono boost it. We always continue worker production. We build our 4th pylon, which will be once again into our main base. And this pylon, it feels a little bit redundant, as there's already a pylon here. So you can build a battery here. Like this pylon isn't really spotting on the edges for prisms, but what this pylon does, it provides a lot of area for us to put important structures. Ideally, you don't want to put in like your Forge or your Twilight Council on the edge, because it might get sniped by a prism with Immortals or with Zealots in it. So always try to put your structures away from the cliff's edge, which in this case is here. Wherever a prism would enter, don't try to make your tech there. So you could also put your 2nd pylon here instead of here. That would kind of solve it, but there's lots of space now for Showtime to build his buildings over here. His Twilight Council, his forges, his extra gateways perhaps even. So once we build our 2nd Oracle, once again we chrono boost it. The moment we get 100 gas, we throw down a robotics facility. We continue worker production on, like I said, on both bases. Well, the moment our Nexus finishes on the natural at least. And then, if we believe that we're not being attacked and we're playing against someone opening Robo or someone opening Twilight, we warp in 2 Adepts. And that's after we get our Robo and we have continued worker production. Worker production always has priority in this case. We warp in 2 Adepts, and in combination with our 2 Oracles, we will be making an attack into the natural base of the opponent. And the way this will be microed is a pretty precise way. You can almost always do it exactly the same. So I'll show you exactly how it's done. And I'll show you how to micro, and I'll try to explain how to defend against it a little bit better than I did here. I hope I can. And let's keep an eye on the build. So this Phoenix is a reactionary Phoenix to seeing my warp. Oh, actually no, he just builds it blindly. Oh, I wasn't actually aware of that. So he builds a Phoenix blindly in case of a prism. So this is an extremely safe play. Usually, okay, if it's not Robo first, so if it's Forge first or Twilight first, I don't think that's necessary. Against Forge first or against Robo first, I can kind of see it, especially if you spot the Warp Prism, but yeah, it does delay your build a bit. I don't mind it too much, but I'm neutral towards this Phoenix. Anyway, let's go on with the build. So all the way throughout, we're continuously producing probes, by the way. So you see he's very even in probes. And what he's going to do now is he's going to make sure he pulls ahead in probes. So you shade the 2 Adepts opposite of the area of where your Oracles are going to fly in. So your Oracles are going to fly in from this side. Your Adepts will be shading in to the top side. And you will force the Protoss, ideally, to move over here. So you shade in, you see him move up here, and I kind of have to go there. Like, I don't want his Adepts to be here, because I will need to move there with my Stalkers. And the Oracles can come in from this bottom angle. And really, all you want to get with this is 4 or 5 workers. Not more than that. 4 or 5 workers, as long as both of your oracles stay alive, is absolutely fantastic. Like, that's gonna be a good trade for you. Now, why is that? Is that because your opponent is investing a lot into Stalkers. He's investing a lot into Sentries as well. It's a lot of gas that he's missing. So if you're not forced to build anything at home, if you're not forced to build any Stalkers yourself at home, the oracles will kind of pay for themselves just by what they're forcing. So the moment you kill something, it means you're doing already way better than you ever truly should have been doing. So it's just basically free damage. As you can see, I have 6 Stalkers in this game and 3 Sentries, and Showtime only has 2 Sentries and 2 Stalkers. That's, 4 Stalkers is 200 gas and 1 Sentry, so that's 300 gas. So that's basically these 2 oracles. So then, of course, there's still the Stargate you need to pay for, but in the end it kind of works out. If you kill 4 or 5 workers, I believe the oracle player is in a very good spot. Of course, he also loses the Adept, which is annoying, but Stalkers in general are not that useful in the army. So you want to be building as little as possible. Only as many as is necessary is what you want to be building. So behind all of this, after we start our after we build our 2 Adepts and we continued worker production, we get a forge and we want to add a Twilight, usually somewhere midway while our forge is building. Here we see Showtime probably a little bit afraid of a counterattack, so he gets an Immortal first before he gets the Twilight, or he's not very keen on doing a timing attack himself. So he adds 2 extra gateways, starts his +1, gets his Immortal out. Now the reason we don't see him take a very fast third base is because in Protoss versus Protoss you always want to go up to 8 gate before you take a third base, or almost always want to get 8 gate, especially when you're playing Charge Archon Immortal or just pure Charge Archon. So the plan here is to just go up to 45, 46 workers, in this case 47. You get 8 gates, you get your upgrades, you get your Archons, and you want to build as little Stalkers as possible. Now, what I'm doing this game is that I'm not getting a forge, which means I am very all in. The moment your opponent gets +1, and especially once +2 is out, if you don't have any upgrades, you're not going to be able to win any Chargelot Archon Immortal fight against Chargelot Archon Immortal. You're always going to be losing them because the Archons just do too much damage to the Zealots and they'll just absolutely disappear in front of your eyes, which is sad. Now, the reason why it's so important to keep these oracles at home is because you can always come back in later to do damage. So in this case, Showtime goes in, sees there's only 2 Stalkers, which is too little, and decides to just fly in, kill a bunch of workers, and in this case he loses 1, but he's done so much damage now that he created a very comfortable lead for himself. On top of that, he also got a scout off and sees, hey, wait a second, there's no forge here. So what is his reaction? Throws on 2 batteries. He knows he has a lead. He doesn't need to take a third base if he's ahead, so he's just gonna wait for the attack. And in this case, like, even if I don't attack and he just adds 2-3 batteries, he's just gonna be up in upgrades, which is also fantastic. So in this case, if I'm kind of forced to attack because of the complete lack of upgrades. There's a massive timer on me, and Showtime realizes that. So instead what he does, he just builds a couple of batteries, just gonna sit back and relax. So he's even thinking about completely walling. And here I am, moving forward. But Showtime has a very good setup. Phoenix patrolling the main. There's an observer that has this area covered. Then he just has 3 batteries, a stasis trap being used with the Oracle. Don't forget, the Oracle is also really valuable as a scout for the third base. And as long as you don't see a third base and you don't see a forge on your opponent's side of the map, why would you be expanding? There's no need. He knows he's ahead. So instead he sits back and just gonna basically take some blows and win the game. As you can see, I try my best, but I just don't have enough units. He created such a good lead, killed 11 workers already. And this is really the kind of composition you want to be going for. You want to be getting Archons, you want to be getting Zealots and Immortals. And you see he only has 2 Stalkers. The Stalkers do almost no damage in the fight. Of course, I'm forced to keep at least some Stalkers at home. Even 1 Stalker per base is a little bit risky, because if the Oracle does come to my side of the map, he will be able to just target down 4 or 5 workers at a time, I believe. And then just fly out very easily. So it's a little dangerous, and like I said, Stalkers are very useless. The longer you keep the Oracles alive as the Oracle player, the better it is for you, because you just force units to stay at home. You might be able to pick something off. Stasis is extremely useful, and as you can see, He has +1. I don't, so absolutely a fantastic build order, which he'd shown me today, and I'll gladly copy and I'll gladly show you guys. If there's any more questions about this build, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. For now, feel free to subscribe, like, and tell me how great these videos are, and I'll see you boys next time. Bye bye.